What's good, everyone? It's currently, what time is it? It's 10 o'clock. I have to wake up in the morning and go running. But I'm currently watching this video called The Four Ways to Heal the Wounded Boy That's Destroying Your Relationships. And I was listening to it, kind of working in the background. I thought it was pretty insightful to listen to. So I'm just going to like play it, share it with y'all. And then I'm going to be working in the background, but I'm going to stop it every time I resonate with something and just share my thoughts. So yeah, and the goal of this video is to really target men that are battling a lot of internal pain. And something else I want to note is that on YouTube, this channel was solely for creating AI tutorials. I'm doing a little rebranding. I think Build with Moses is really around building a life that you deserve. That can be emotional, that can be spiritual, and that can be financial. And I think the pillars that I'm going to focus on is building AI solutions, but also talking about real things. And once I do it consistently, I'll probably separate the two channels. But I think right now it's about being bold and creating content. So yeah, let's get into it. His name is Ryan. I think it's Mooresby White. I might have butchered his name, so hopefully I didn't. But yeah, I'm going to tag him in it, and yeah, let's get into it.
Relationships, in how he shows up as a leader in the world, to becoming the safe, grounded, emotionally mature man who has capacity to not only hold himself, hold his frame and live from his truth, but also hold a woman and hold the stresses of life, of what it means to be a leader in the world as a man. If you implement the things that I'm about to share with you in this video, you will experience a fundamental shift in your life as a man. What I'm about to share with you is a level of depth of work that is missing in the personal development industry when it comes to men's work specifically. And if you're doing any sort of men's work and you're not touching on these four things I'm about to share with you, you're completely wasting your time when it comes to doing the inner work. And one thing I found from being in the personal development industry for over 10 years now is that this depth of work is something that's been lost on a lot of men's personal development work. You've probably experienced doing all of the right things, saying all the right things, doing all the right things, yet she still feels like it's not enough. Maybe you feel and you know that you're not meeting a woman in the depth that she's truly craving from you, and it leaves you feeling shame that you're unable to actually meet her in that emotional depth. Maybe you find yourself easily reactive or shut down or avoiding intimacy because of the overwhelm or the feeling that it creates of being consumed. And it leaves you keeping love at arm's length, arm's distance. Or maybe you found yourself as the insecure man, the nice guy, who easily shuts down his truth, doesn't speak his truth, and just becomes a people pleaser.
I definitely would say that one thing I resonated with is being the Mr. Nice Guy. I think a lot of men don't talk about it, but I think that a lot of men shelter their truth because of deep emotional wounds from their past, specifically their childhood. So I resonate with that because I think that in order to really be a man, you have to understand that being a man is also about taking responsibility. And I think through taking responsibility, you have to be truly yourself. Because if you don't take responsibility for the person you are you really a man? And I think if you are going through life and just doing things just to make people happy, then the level of responsibility that you're taking is very low, to the point where you take no responsibility, because as long as they're happy, you're good. But there has to be some type of friction in life, right? Because if you are living this life and there's people coming and they want something, or they want you to do this, this, and that, if that doesn't align with the life that God placed for you to live, I think a man has to know how to say no and live a life that he knows that he's supposed to live. So yeah, I resonate with that a lot. So I'm gonna keep playing it.
To keep the peace, to keep his woman happy so she doesn't leave you and abandon you. And because of all of this, she's losing attraction over time. And not only that in a relationship, but you're not truly leading in your life because you're operating as a boy in relationships, which heavily impacts how you feel and show up in your work as a man. I've sat with hundreds of men in circle, in retreats, through our online mentorship, and I can tell you right now, a lot of men are high-performing, high-achieving men, doing amazing things in the world, yet unconsciously operating from the emotional maturity and capacity of the little boy, leaving him completely sabotaging his life and relationship. I've seen it all. I've seen these men break down from no matter how much they've achieved or whatever level of success they've created. Behind it all, beneath it all, is a little boy who has been craving the love that he didn't receive in childhood. And it leaves him completely contaminating every area of his life, relationships, and especially how he shows up as a leader in the world. Okay, so the first point, you might want to write this one down.
This is the perfect pair for your iPhone, and it replaces 3 different chargers. So when I travel, I don't pack extra cables, I don't have to pack extra bricks. This covers my phone, my watch, and anything USB.
You can't heal what you can't separate from. In the work, in the study and the theory of internal family systems therapy, they speak about this concept called unblending. And basically what this is when the younger versions of us, or the little boy within us, is triggered, what happens is we become blended with that part of us. The way I like to describe it is, if you think of the eclipse with the sun and the moon, right? The sun is the man, it's the fullness of who you are. And the moon is the little boy. And in an eclipse, what happens is the moon moves in front of the sun and you can't tell what's what. It becomes one, right? And basically what happens is, this is when a man can't tell the difference between the boy and the man, and he becomes blended with this part of him. And what happens is this little boy is the one who's now in control. Where a man can't tell the difference between the little boy who feels afraid that he's going to be abandoned and the man. So he starts operating from the emotional states and consciousness and energy of the boy. Now, this concept of unblending is when we separate from this younger part of us. And we're able to witness this younger part of us. So it's no longer the one in control. And this is really where the reparenting comes in, the refathering of this inner child, of this younger, vulnerable, scared part of you that's trying to protect you as a man. Now, just to provide a bit more understanding as to what I mean when this part of us takes over, moves in, and we can't tell the difference between the boy and the man. And it comes in with this idea of what's called implicit memory, which is our body's emotional memory. And it's kind of like when you're driving down the road and you see the police lights flashing in your rearview mirror and you hear the sirens, it triggers a response in your body. And it triggers a response based on every single experience you've had with authority or police. So your body's emotional memory triggers a physical response that brings you back into the energy of fear or whatever it is that you associate authority or.
I would say I also resonate with that. I think based off my past relationships, I think that there would be times where things might come up and this emotion, no response will come up, but I would have no idea what it meant. And I think a lot of the times I can think of, it resulted into me shutting down. And as he articulates, I think that was the boy side of Moses coming out saying, "Hey bro, like protect yourself. Like don't engage." And I think relationships require emotional depth. So if you don't engage, now you are not creating the opportunity for you to go deep emotionally with that other person. So I resonate with that.
So this implicit memory, it's our body's emotional memory. It doesn't operate on a timeline. And maybe you've seen this through some of my other trainings and videos, but our body, our subconscious mind doesn't know time. Operates on no timeline. So what happens is as soon as we enter into relationship, this implicit memory is triggered automatically. And your body can't tell the difference between the 30, 40, 50-year-old man that you are today and the 7-year-old boy who didn't have his needs met in childhood. So what happens is when this part of us is triggered, this younger version of us, our body, our subconscious mind doesn't operate on a timeline. It triggers this implicit memory where you regress back. Maybe you've heard this before. It's called age regression. This is where you regress back into the consciousness, right, the psychology and the maturity of when you last had your developmental needs met. So basically, you turn into and you become the little boy. And this is why men struggle and they lack emotional capacity in relationship. This is why when they're triggered, they just get taken over by this younger part of them that comes in, right, like the eclipse. Right, this little boy comes in to protect. And this is where maybe you've heard of anxious, avoidant, disorganized attachment styles. Right, these attachment styles are these younger parts of us coming in to protect us from the original pain that our subconscious mind can't tell the difference between today and when you were whatever age you were. Okay? So this idea through internal family systems therapy of unblending is separating from this younger part of you, from this little boy. So you can hold the boy and operate and respond from the man. So I'm going to give you a very practical thing that you can do to implement to actually start this unblending process. And I want you to try it with me here today, right now. Now, what happens when this part of us, this younger part of us takes over, we become blended, we become enmeshed, we can't tell the difference between the boy and the man. What happens is when, let's just say, for example, the little boy who felt emotionally alone in his family system. That was me. Right? I felt more alone in my family system than actually being on my own. So what would happen was, as a grown man today, when I would feel a sense of loneliness, right? Maybe something would trigger. My partner would say something or do something, or something would happen that would trigger this emotional memory that would bring me back into the consciousness of this boy. This part of me would...
I think something I also want to add for context. I think for somebody that you might not have the best example when it comes to just relationships, I think it's important to do that inner work, especially before you have a wife and kids, specifically for men, but I think the same thing for women. I think especially before you bring a kid in this world, because I think there's a lot of internal wounds that we never identify. So we just pass that down to the next seed. And I think for me, someone that wants to build a legacy, and also I plan to have a lot of kids, I think that it's important for me to take the time to watch these videos. So that's kind of what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm not sure how I'm going to turn this into like engaging content where people actually watch it, but I think one thing about this that's interesting, if you think of Build with Moses, is that I really want to focus on building and healing. That's it. I want to build and I want to heal. I want to, and I think through healing is loving myself. And I think that's something I need to work on. And I think this is the first step, because I'm not going to lie. This video is very, very insightful. I mean, it's basically breaking down the family wound that a lot of men don't talk about. And I think that a lot of men know deep inside that they have wounds, but we never really identify it and we never really take care of it. So yeah, that's really why I'm watching this video. And also I'm working too at the same time. So I'm just kind of doing both. Yeah.
And this loneliness I would feel, it would feel like, I'm lonely. Right? I have this loneliness that's just taking over me, where I can't tell the difference between the little boy who's feeling deeply alone and abandoned and on his own and the man today. It's like the eclipse. This part of me just moves in front, and I'm now just this lonely boy, this lost boy. Now, maybe you can begin to see the danger here when a man is unable to unblend from this younger part of him, how he then operates from this lonely part of him, right? And the things he then needs to turn to soothe and to cope, to manage in his life, because he's actually operating.
This is powerful when it comes to coping, because men struggle with pornography, from like talking to other women, from like just sitting with all the pain yourself and just like gaslighting and just making stuff seem like something there's not. And just like over and over and over and over and over again of us just not really being honest with ourselves. And I think it comes from avoidant, and it comes from us feeling pain, but not knowing what to do with that pain. Especially what he says with, like, imagine you're a little kid and you have this deep wound of your dad or your mom, like, this is theoretically speaking, but your dad or your mom left you in times where you really needed them. You always have that wound with you. And I think as you get older, even if you don't know this, you have that. And the way that you respond is based off that past wound. So I find this very, very interesting.
This wounded part of him that's trying to protect him. So what we're doing here with the unblending is it's going from what you're going to say to yourself, right? In this example, is you're going to notice how you're feeling, right? So let's just say for a moment, I'm feeling lonely, right? I'm feeling this deep loneliness, and I might feel it somewhere in my body. I'm going to notice the emotion. Okay, there's loneliness here. I feel deeply alone. What you're going to say is, I notice there's something in me. There's a part that's feeling lonely. And you're going to say it with a real sense of curiosity. So maybe you want to try this right now. If there's an emotion that you're feeling or have been feeling, right? Maybe it's anger, right? I'm
basically taking the emotion, identifying the emotion, and sitting with it. Yeah, that's interesting.
Angry, or I'm really sad, I'm really frustrated, or I'm really happy. I want you to say to yourself, I notice there's something within me. There's a part of me that's experiencing loneliness, anger, sadness, happiness, joy, whatever it is. And what you might begin to notice and feel is the shift in your nervous system from being anger or being loneliness to, I notice and I can witness and observe a part of me that's feeling this way. And this is where you get to become curious and hold this part of you that's feeling this, knowing that it's not all of you. Because when we're blended, this part of us takes over us. When we unblend, this part of us is no longer in control, and we can be curious about what it's actually seeking to bring forward to us. So I'm going to share with you this little quote to wrap this first point up. And this is from Richard Schwartz, and he is the founder of Internal Family Systems Therapy, of IFS. And it goes like this. The goal is not to eliminate parts, but to help them release their burdens. So what he's saying here is, and there's such a big misconception around doing inner child work and healing the boy, healing these younger parts of us, is we want to get rid of it. What that does is the more you try and get rid of this little boy within you and push this part away, the more it's going to persist. What you resist will persist. It will push back harder. The more you reject these parts of you, the more they're going to come back and smack you in the face. So in this quote, the goal is not to eliminate parts, right? So the goal is not to get rid of these parts of you, right? But to help them release their burdens. So this is separating from the part, unblending. And then as the man, creating a safe space for this little boy, this younger part of you to be witnessed and loved. And for you to bring love and light and a sense of safety to this part of you. And what really happens is this is where the deep grieving work happens. This is where you get to create space for this younger part of you to grieve the hurt and the pain and the loss.
I think this is probably the most important to me, because I think grieving is something that we deny a lot as men. And I think that grieving is really the only way that we can get to the other side and really understand what those emotions taught us. And I think it's interesting because if you think of men in society right now, that there's a very negative connotation around feeling. And I think there's a level of you being masculine, you being a man, but also feeling. And I think there's not one without the other. And I mean that by saying that I think in order for a man to really be a man, he has to feel his emotions. He has to sit with them. He has to understand them. And an analogy that I use all the time is that if you take a warrior, if you take a leader of an army and he has to go to war and he has to lead his troops, the best leader is a leader that can feel. It's not a leader that makes decisions based off his emotions, but it's a leader that is not numb to his emotions. That's a bar. But you need to understand how you feel, because how you feel is how you dictate what's happening. That does not mean that you make decisions based off how you feel. No, it's you being able to sit and understand, okay, this is a situation we're in and this is why. And I think that it takes deep understanding, and I will call it like the unpeel the onion, where like you have this onion and this onion has so many layers, and in order for you to get to the middle, which is the wounds that you have, you need to unpeel the onion. And I think what he's talking about now is so important, because he's basically saying is that you can't trick yourself into thinking that you can run away from the truth. Basically, you're running away from that little boy saying, hey, I'm good. That little boy is good. Like, I'm just going to leave him in the past. But no, bro, like you have to sit with that. So when you get to your age, 28, almost 30, you want a wife, you want kids, you can sit with your emotions, which means that you can clearly articulate how you feel, even outside of that emotion that the little kid has. But also you can identify when that little kid comes up so you can control it. Because what he's saying is that if you deny it, you can't identify it. Which means that if that little kid is denied by you and that little kid comes up and you have that negative, in my opinion, that negative experience, because no one wants to act like a kid when they're a man. No one wants to do that. But we do it all the time. And the conclusion that I have based off what he says is that at the end of the day, you have to identify what that little kid is, what wounds the little kid went through, and how can you get the work so you can do the inner work right now so that little kid doesn't come up in the future, so it doesn't ruin your relationships. So he's spitting. I'm not gonna lie. I might honestly I need to go to sleep soon because I gotta wake up early, but I might watch like 3 of his videos. I'm not even gonna lie. This is very interesting. Yeah.
Part of you felt in childhood. And until that part is felt and grieved, right, it'll continue to control your life, contaminate your life, and sabotage your relationships. So to wrap this up, what we're doing is we're welcoming these parts of us. We're separating, we're unblending from them. And then we're witnessing and observing these younger parts of us and bringing loving presence to them. So this little boy is not the one in control. The second point, what a man needs to do to heal from being the boy and really step into being the man, is he needs to acknowledge the hurt and the pain that he has caused.
Acknowledge the hurt and the pain that he has caused from his own wounds. So basically identifying the wounds that you caused. Well, no. One, identifying the wounds that you have, right? So identify the things in your childhood that has affected your actions right now. And then 2, being able to also acknowledge the hurt and the pain that you've caused to others through your wounds. I like that.
The people that he loves, because he's been operating from these wounded parts of him. Until we truly acknowledge and feel the shame, the guilt, the grief of how our actions and behavior has created pain, suffering, or led us to sabotage a good relationship or a good business opportunity or a business relationship. Until we actually feel that, right, from these mistakes that we've maybe made, or these hurts that we've caused in our life from operating from the boy, you can't truly gain the lesson until you've grieved it and felt it. You can't truly learn the lesson until you've felt the grief from the hurt that you've caused and created from this place. And it's really important to acknowledge this, because what a lot of people do is they try and jump to forgiveness too early, way too early. There's a real gift in allowing yourself to actually feel the shame from, or the grief, the sadness from the hurt that you've actually caused from operating as an uninitiated boy in the world. So I was in a relationship once where I was very much operating from this scared, wounded boy. I was deeply afraid that this woman was going to leave me, and I was just anxious and reactive and shut down, really operating from this boy that was afraid of love leaving him, abandoning him, or betraying him. And because of the level of fear that I was living in and how scared this little boy was within me, I caused a lot of hurt from the emotional, the weight of how much reassurance I constantly needed. The hurt from the manipulation, trying to manipulate and say the right things, or plant seeds in roundabout ways so she would meet my needs, and things like that. Passive aggressiveness, where my anger, my unresolved resentment and anger would come out in passive aggressive behaviors or comments or just my energy. And it wasn't until she, of course, eventually left me because of the state of survival that I was living in, from the hurt that I then caused her, this emotional abuse, if you call it, right? From this wounded part that I was operating from. If I hadn't truly felt the shame and the grief and the sadness of that hurt that I'd caused, I would be bypassing learning the actual lesson that was there, understanding that my actions actually have a consequence. The things that I say, how I behave, my energy, how I show up in a relationship, actually has a consequence.
Yeah, I think, I think this is very important, especially as men, because I think that we could definitely, if you have if you had a childhood where you got away with a lot of stuff, I think you could easily convince yourself that the pain that you have and the trauma that you have that caused the pain and the trauma in somebody else's life shouldn't come back and force you to deal with the consequences of your actions. And I think that's a very dangerous way to think, because every action has a reaction. And I think that during those times, it's important to not allow that energy and allow that experience to just pass you by, because if you do, it's probably going to recreate itself in some way, somehow. Because I think that during those times, it's a reminder that you have to, it's imperative that you get help. And that means cheating, that means lying, that means doing stuff that you don't want to do, but you still do it. That means having bad habits, addiction, all these things usually come from a deep, deep wound that you never dealt with. And what he's saying is that the pain that you feel and the pain you pass on to someone else, if you don't sit with that emotion, you don't sit with the fact that you hurt them deeply, the likelihood of you healing from that, or the likelihood of you healing for that is very low, and the likelihood of you repeating that is very high. So I resonate with that for sure. That was very, very well said and insightful.
And there's a depth that you will meet within yourself as a man, and that a woman will feel within you as a man. When you have the capacity to not only grieve the little boy within you and these younger parts of you that take control, but the hurt that you've caused in your life from this. Because until you've actually felt it, I can tell you right now, you haven't fully received the gift and the lesson that was in this for you. Just to quickly recap, what we've covered so far is the grief of the wounded boy, the wounded inner child, actually grieving your childhood. Okay, so that's the first one. Then the second one was grieving the hurt of the pain that you've caused in the world from operating as the uninitiated wounded boy. Which leads us to the third point, which is now starting to work with healing the family system. Your relationship with your mother.
Heal and recognize your family system.
Other is a blueprint that is imprinted in your consciousness, in your psyche. So your unresolved mother and father wounds from childhood, from your family system, is literally your foundation and blueprint of relationship. Now, what happens is as soon as you enter into a relationship, implicit memory, it triggers this emotional memory, this blueprint, right, that you've been passed down from your family of what relationship means. And that naturally gets triggered whether you know it or not. As soon as you open your heart to a relationship, you're triggering your original blueprint of relationship, which is the relationship with your mother and father. So until we actually heal the wounds from our family system and separate from the family system, okay, remember what I shared? You can't heal what you can't separate from. Until we separate from our family system and we grieve the wounds that we've experienced from our mother and father, and we have the conversations needed, and we start creating the healing that's needed in our family system, you won't be able to choose your mother and father from a healthy place. Until you can choose your mother and father and see the reciprocity of love that flows both ways, with and from your mother and father, you'll have blocks in relationship because your mother and father is the representation of the masculine and feminine energy. These mother and father wounds that we experience show up in many different facets, many different ways in adult relationship, which would be a whole video in itself. But basically, I just want to share this quote with you. This is from one of my favorite teachers and mentors around inner child work, John Bradshaw. And he says, "We cannot create healthy intimacy if we are still controlled by the wounds of our family origin."
Thanks, Mike.
See you next month.
So you can get these delivered? It's literally water.com.
Yeah, I think that, wow. I resonate with that a lot. My story is pretty interesting. I think I'm going to go live stream from this and just talk. Yeah, my story is pretty interesting. I have older parents, and I think that I have an amazing mom. She's like the most loving human being I ever met in my life. And as I got older, being kind of the man of the house, I always wanted to give back to her. Like, I always wanted to create this life for her that she deserves. And I think through that, I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I think I have not consistently treated her the way I want to treat her, because I'm always thinking about, hey, I want to pay for this, I want to do that, and I may not be able to do that in the time, so I feel bad for myself. So I just go into this deep hole of thought to the point where I just isolate myself. But the dangerous part about that is that life is finite. You know, you only have a certain amount of time on this earth. And I think what he's referring to around the family system is understanding every dynamic in your family and why it has affected you the way it's affected you. And I think one thing I can be honest with is that, like, it being really just me and my mom, it was my sister too, but like it just being us three, really, like, I always felt the responsibility to take care of them. And I still feel that. And I think it's not dangerous to talk about it, but I think it's also important to identify where it comes from. So I resonate with that, especially on my mom's side. On my dad's side, my dad's story is pretty interesting because he's 85 and I'm 28. So he had me, I think, at 58 or 57, something like that. And my dad's story is just interesting because he grew up without his mom and his dad. And I used to just be angry at my dad growing up, like angry. Like, why is he not around? Angry. But as I got older, I really sat down and I understood. Like, he didn't know no better. To be honest. And I appreciate him for sitting me down and being honest with me and like telling me the truth of the entire situation and just like completely breaking down everything to the T, because I think that really helped my growth as a man. So I appreciate that. And I think the wound that I have with my dad is that I sometimes think I don't spend enough time with him. You know, it's kind of very similar to my mom. Like, having older parents is interesting because it forces you to grow up a lot sooner. I think I'm growing up a little too late at 28. I think I should have figured this out a lot younger. But I think one thing I did not know is that past wounds really, really affect you if you're not careful. So I think what I'm getting from this video, especially this part when it comes to the family system, is that it's very important to identify wounds on both sides. So my mom and my dad, that family system, how we are together as a family has affected me, you know? And I think it's important to identify how those two things affected you so you can move past it. That's kind of my hypothesis, the way he's saying, but I'm going to play because I've been talking for too long. So let's get back into the video.
At that land, we cannot create healthy intimacy if we are still controlled by the wounds of our family origin. So until we heal from our family system, separate from our family system, by all of these points that we've literally been speaking about, we can't create healthy intimacy because this blueprint and these wounds are literally how we're going to be viewing relationship and experiencing relationship. For example, and this is just a prime example of how this shows up, and this is just one very, very small example of many. I remember one morning I was with my partner and it was beautiful, sunny morning, Sunday morning, we're driving down the road, going to get a coffee, going to go hang out at the beach, really, really beautiful morning. And driving down the road and I'm happy, tunes are blasting, and I look over to my left and I see she's on her phone. She's texting away, she's swiping, doing her thing, and I got so triggered. I regressed back into this childlike state. I went quiet, I shut down, I wanted to react, I wanted to get angry. Why are you on your phone? This makes no sense. The reaction far outweighed the actual situation. But what happened was, it triggered my unresolved wound around my father when I didn't feel like I was priority or that I was important. And I always felt that with my father, there was something outside of our relationship.
I think this is interesting that he's talking about this. So I think the way I resonate with this is that I definitely in past relationships, I think I prioritize work because I wanted to be in a financial position to help my family out, especially my mom and my dad. I think also when it comes to my dad is that I always felt like I wanted to make him proud. So I would prioritize just like deep work or just like make myself super uncomfortable so I can go back to him and kind of share this story. And I remember the day that he told me he's proud of me, and that kind of made my day. But I can tell that a lot of the things that I did and a lot of the times I put myself in isolation is because I just wanted validation, especially from my dad. So yeah, I don't know how this got so deep so quick, but you know, I'm here for it.
More important than me, right? He worked 7 days a week, 15 hours a day. And that unresolved wound from my father, I wasn't seeing my partner through the lens of the man or that actual situation. In that moment, that was my father. And that was a little boy getting upset or sad or reactive. The dad wasn't there paying attention to him. And this is just a very quick example and short example of many as to how these unresolved mother and father wounds contaminate our life. So that's a really great quote. But what I'm going to do is give you an exercise that you can do right now to actually begin to notice your family system and where you are in your family system in relation to your mother and father. So what you're going to do, you're going to get a piece of paper and you're going to draw a big circle in the piece of paper. Okay, so trust me on this. This is a feeling process. You're going to draw a big circle, and then what I want you to do is this inside this circle is your map. What we spoke about before, the blueprints of relationship, this is your blueprint. This is your map. And within this circle, what I want you to do is draw another little circle, and this is you. So I want you to place and draw this wherever you feel that in this map, you belong. So go and do that now. Once you've done that, once you've drawn you, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to feel into where do you feel in this map, in reference to where you are in the map, where do you feel your mother is or goes or belongs? And I want you to go ahead and draw where she is in the map. Okay, don't think about this too much, just draw it, just do it. Okay, so wherever you feel she belongs in this map, draw her there, in a little circle. And then I want you to draw an arrow in which way she's facing. And draw an arrow in which way you're facing as well. The second one is your father. I want you to feel, where do you feel your father goes in this map? Go ahead and draw where your father belongs in this map. And I want you to draw an arrow in which way you believe he's facing. Cool. And if you want, you can go ahead and do the same with your siblings as well. I want you to look at this map and notice what you feel. Notice how it feels to be here. When you look at you, maybe you place your finger on it. Notice how it feels to be here. Notice what role you're playing or you had to play as a little boy in this map, in this family system. What are the beliefs that you have about your mother or your father by being in this position? This may bring some awareness, right? This is a practice I normally do live with men. So I'm just trusting that you're just doing it on your own. And there's a lot here. There's a lot that I coach and mentor men through when it comes to this work. And this is just awareness. Right? This is not the real inner work. This is just awareness, okay? So hopefully this brings to you some awareness as to the relationship you have with your mother and father and how you've literally just drawn it on a map. And maybe you feel like, wow, this is very familiar. I didn't tell you what to draw, you drew it, because that is literally the blueprint and the map that you have in your consciousness and psyche of your family system. And that's the map and the blueprint that is going to sabotage and contaminate your relationships if you don't heal these original wounds from your family system, separate from your system. Because until you separate from where you are in this map, from this system, you'll continue to play the role that you've played your entire life in this family system. You can't heal what you can't separate from. So when a man separates from this, right, he's no longer playing into the role and dynamic of being this little boy in this family dynamic. And lastly, point number 4 is that if you truly want to level up in your life as a man, you need to prioritize building healthy relationships with men who are doing the inner work, men who are leaders in their life, men who are mature, men who are on mission. There's a big fucking difference between spending time with the boys, hanging out with the boys, chilling with the boys, and spending intentional time with initiated men. Initiated meaning they've gone from being a boy to they're in their man consciousness. And their life is revolved around their mission, their purpose, their family, being in community, being of service, and they have a connection and a relationship to something greater than themselves. Boys think about themselves only, right? Men are in relationship to something greater than themselves. And there's one of my favorite quotes by Les Brown. He says, birds of a feather flock together. If you run with eagles, you'll soar. But if you run with turkeys, you'll never leave the ground. And that is exactly what I'm speaking about here when it comes to when you spend time and you're hanging out with the boys, there's a very, very, very big fucking difference between that and intentionally investing your time, your energy, your money into being around the right men that are going to challenge and support you to being the best possible man that you can possibly be. The best leader, partner, husband, father, whatever it is. Your environment is stronger and will far outweigh your willpower. When you're around the right men, the right leaders, they will naturally start to rub off on you. And this is why I'm so deeply passionate about brotherhood and community and men being in the right space with the right guidance and right support with men who are going to truly help him go from being the boy to not only the man, but a true leader in the world. Now, if this video resonated with you, you're going to love the hour-long training that I did on how to heal the boy. It'll be linked somewhere here and you can go there and check it out. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey everybody, it's Tony Robbins. Listen, no matter how smart you are, even if you're the best neurosurgeon in the world, you don't do neurosurgery on yourself because you're...
If you're watching this video, that tells me that you're beginning to become aware of the wounded boy, the wounded inner child that is showing up and contaminating your relationship and pretty much every area of your life. Maybe you're beginning to notice and recognize where you're easily shut down or easily reactive or constantly triggered or constantly living in a perpetual state of survival and reactivity. Maybe you're noticing your lack of emotional capacity. It's leaving you overwhelmed, easily overwhelmed in a relationship, in your work, in what you do in the world. It's leaving you constantly questioning yourself, overthinking, and just feeling small, feeling limited, feeling insecure, feeling anxious, or just in general shut down. Maybe you've even done years of inner work. You've worked with therapists, different mentors, you've read all the books, you've listened to all the podcasts, you've been to the events, maybe you've done counseling or some form of therapy, yet these wounds are still playing out and sabotaging your relationship. And you've done all these years of work where nothing has actually really created a lasting shift and change within your nervous system in the way that's actually going to provide the emotional safety that your partner, your woman is seeking, craving from you. If you're watching this, that also means that you most likely have a pull to doing the deep inner work that's going to actually create a lasting shift and change in your nervous system, within your work, within your life, within your relationship. And if you're watching this, that means that you're ready to heal the boy and awaken the man, the safe man, the mature man, the man who has capacity, and the man of depth who has the ability to truly lead from deep masculine presence, not from performance, but from a way of being, from the essence of just who you are. My name is Ryan White. I'm the founder of Heal the Boy Institute. I've personally worked with over 1,000 men, helping them heal the boy and awaken the man within them, the man who has the capacity, the man who's in his power, and the man who's truly leading his life. I'm deeply dedicated to this work, and I've served men all over the world and continue to grow and expand this mission. With that being said, let's get into it. In this video, we're going to do 3 things. First of all, I'm going to show you the difference between the immature, wounded boy and how that shows up and contaminates and sabotages a man's relationship compared to the mature, safe man. And the difference between the two so you can really understand and see clearly the difference and understand where you are at and how it's showing up for you. Secondly, I'm going to show you the exact strategy and the work that's actually involved. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I'm going to be real and raw with you. The actual work that's involved that's going to actually create a lasting shift within your nervous system. And what that looks like for you to do, which will then lead us into the third thing we're going to go into, which is how do you actually integrate this work so you can create these lasting shifts, so you can actually heal the boy and progress through to a greater capacity of the mature safe man. Before we continue, if you want personal support with your situation and where you're currently at, and you want to do the work on this, I suggest booking in a one-on-one call with myself or the team, and we can have a conversation and see how we can best support you. When you finish watching this video, there'll be a link at the bottom that you can jump on and book in a call. But apart from that, let's get back in the video. So there's 2 things I would like to cover before we actually go into the difference between the immature boy and the safe man. And it's going to help you understand what I actually mean when I say the wounded, immature boy and how the boy shows up in the relationship. A lot of people maybe heard of the wounded inner child or the inner child or the boy, but what does that actually mean? And I'm going to draw this for you to have a clear understanding as to what's actually happening when the boy is coming out and what I mean by that. So the way I like to describe how the wounded boy and the immature boy shows up, and to give you some context of what's actually happening when you're triggered and when these immature states come out.
As I'm watching this, I'm kind of asking myself, why am I on live watching this? Like, who's going to watch this? But to my point, I think there has to be other men that recognize that they are deeply wounded and they have this deep desire to build a family. And I think I kind of feel like a kid, like learning or a kid that's very curious. And I have to also understand where I'm at right now. And I don't think in every area of my life I am showing up as a man, but I think I have a deep desire to. So I think what's interesting about this is that growth is beautiful. And maybe, a couple weeks from now or a couple years from now, this conversation will be totally different. And maybe I'm talking from his perspective, but I think what he's saying is important. I think all men need to hear it. So, sir, I appreciate your work.
And it looks something like this. So if we were to break this up, this is the mind, okay? Up here is 5 to 7% of us. Beneath the surface here is what we call the subconscious mind, which is 95 to 97% of us, okay? Now, the conscious mind up here, the conscious mind, the conscious mind operates on a timeline. So what I mean by this is that you are here in this present moment. So you're aware of the present moment. You're aware that you're a grown adult man in this moment. You're aware that you have responsibilities, you have a job, you might have a car, a home, or whatever. You might be consciously aware of your past, and you might have some idea of the potential future. Okay. So the conscious mind operates on this timeline of past, present, and future. Now, what most people don't understand and where they go wrong is they get so caught up in the present moment with who they are today that they completely disregard the place that they're actually operating from. And what I mean by this is if the conscious mind is only 5 to 7% of you, okay, and the rest of you is unconscious, subconscious, then what actually has more control over you is the unconscious mind. And within the unconscious of what we are unaware of, this is our emotions, this is our...
I'm not going to lie, this is kind of powerful. Basically what he's saying is that your subconscious mind has way more powerful over your conscious mind because it doesn't identify anything as time, which means that if there's an emotion that comes up that feels similar to the emotion that was in the past that probably triggered that subconscious thought, it automatically gets activated because subconscious doesn't have any understanding of time. Holy shit. Excuse my language, but this is very fascinating.
Stored emotions, this is trauma, this could be deep-rooted beliefs, this is our identity, right? This is the original blueprint of what you experienced in a relationship as a child, okay? This is all operating at an unconscious level. So when you experience a wound in childhood or your parents were maybe emotionally unavailable, they weren't able to meet you in the way that you needed as a child, you develop this wound, okay? And that wound is a trauma. It turns into a trauma. If it happens for a long enough period of time, it becomes chronic trauma, okay? Where it's subtle, but over a long period of time, it's a wound that develops from this chronic lack of having your needs met or having a safe parent, which turns into a trauma, right? That trauma then shapes your belief systems. That trauma then causes you to hold stored emotion in the body. That trauma then shapes your identity, who you believe to be, what you believe to be true about yourself, right? So this core wound operating, this original pain from your childhood, operating on a deep, unconscious, subconscious level is what's happening beneath the surface, okay? Now, the important piece about this is that the unconscious mind, the 95 to 97% of us, doesn't know time. It doesn't operate on a timeline. Your subconscious mind, these core wounds and experiences and beliefs and unresolved emotions from childhood, can't tell the difference between when you were, say, 5 years old and who you are today. So when we are triggered in a relationship, or even this simple act of opening your heart to someone in a relationship, you're triggering the original pain or the original experience of being in a relationship with mum or dad. So the simple act of getting into a relationship is triggering the original feelings and the original blueprint of your first original relationship. So by opening yourself to a relationship, you're opening yourself to all of the dormant, unresolved wounds from childhood. This is why you can be secure when you're single and on your own, but then you get into a relationship and it's activating what's called implicit memory. Implicit memory doesn't have a timeline. It is your body's emotional memory. It doesn't know the difference between this moment right now and when you were 5 years old. It only knows the event or the experience that's being triggered. So when we're doing this deep inner work, it's really important to understand what I actually mean by the wounded inner child, the wounded inner boy, and to know that most men today, if we come back to the drawing for a moment, in the present moment, because they haven't actually grieved and heal their unresolved pain from childhood, whether they know it or not. Until a man has healed the boy and reclaimed these younger parts of him, in this present moment, he'll be operating from the emotional maturity and capacity of a child. Think of a little boy dealing with the weight and responsibility of everything that you have going on in your life today. That would be very overwhelming for them. That'd be very intimidating, leave them quite easily shut down or reactive, right? And this is where most men are operating from, because in the present moment, unconsciously, subconsciously, their body can't tell the difference, and they're operating from this very limited emotional capacity. When I say the immature boy, and I'm talking about the wounded inner child, okay? I'm talking about the implicit memory that we hold and store within our body that's keeping a man stuck in emotional maturity of a child. This is where, when he's triggered in a relationship, he regresses back. There's a thing called age regression. When you're triggered, it triggers this original pain from childhood where your body can't tell the difference, and he's literally regressed back into the same strategies that he used as a little boy to protect himself, to keep love at arm's length, to keep himself safe, to protect his heart, or the strategies that he used to gain closeness and connection to get his needs met. Some people may know this and what I just described as attachment styles. Our attachment styles are literally just the strategies and coping mechanisms that we developed as children to protect ourselves, right? To push and resist love, to create separation, right? Or it's the strategies and mechanisms that we use to actually get our needs met and to move into relationships. Now, this is where wounded attachment comes from, something we'll speak more into. And this is why when we enter a relationship, it triggers the implicit memory, the body's emotional memory of relationship, which are these wounded attachment styles that are then awakened. This dormant energy is awakened. The second thing I want to quickly explain is this thing called spread activation theory. It ties into what I just shared, and basically what it is that when you experience something in this moment, you're not just experiencing that thing in this moment, but you're experiencing the lifetime of memory and emotion that you have that is associated with that similar thing. What I mean by this?
I think as I watched this, I just made a decision. I'm going to create two separate channels. One Heal with Moses and one Build with Moses. I think that it's important to really, really dive deep into this, and I don't want it to be fabricated with like the AI stuff that I'm going to build. So this right now is on Build with Moses, but this will probably be my last video talking about this stuff on Build with Moses. Because I think Heal with Moses is very important. And no, I'm not trying to tell people to heal or learn from me. I think it's important to document the journey of going from a boy to a man. Because right now, I'm going to be honest, I'm 28, but my actions equate to a boy. I think that a lot of ways that I am triggered by different things, and I lie to myself saying that I'm not triggered as a boy. And I think my unawareness of how things show up and how emotions affect my actions are ways of a boy. And I think that videos like this, and I'm pretty sure there's more videos, and maybe I take these videos, I do my deeper understanding, and then I create my own videos out of this. I think that it can turn into something really beneficial for men, especially young men, that just learn how to sit with their emotions and not lie to themselves. So, what's this man's name? I'm about to know you by first name, brother. Ryan. Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Say thank you. If I ever meet you one day, I'm gonna give you a big hug because I didn't even know this side of YouTube existed, brother. I didn't even know this side of YouTube existed, brother. Let me chill out. But yeah, let's get back to the video. Give me a high five.
Is if you experience rejection in a relationship or you experience emotional neglect in a relationship, it not only triggers the pain of what you're experiencing in this moment, but it's also signaling and triggering every other time throughout your entire life you were ever rejected or abandoned. So it's not just what you're experiencing in this moment from this trigger, it's everything that you've experienced throughout your entire life around being rejected or abandoned. And this is why I can feel like a lot. And this is where, when a man's still operating from this original pain of the wounded inner child, he regresses back to this limited emotional capacity and state to deal with the trigger, to deal with the intense emotions that arise as you are taking on more responsibility, as you're dealing with wounds and triggers that naturally will come up in a relationship. But just coming back to the drawing for a moment, when a man is still operating in this present moment as a boy, as the wounded boy, or this immature psychological state, psychology, emotional maturity, what happens is, let's say he experienced a wound in his past. What then happens is he carries that wound throughout his entire life, and that wound comes with certain behaviors to deal with the pain. It comes with certain strategies to cope with whatever the core emotional wound was. And what that does is it creates these self-sabotaging patterns of behavior that then lead him up to the man that he is in this present moment. And what happens is, if a man is unaware of his original pain from childhood, he continues to play out the same patterns, the same behavior, he gets triggered by the same things, and he continues to lean on the behaviors and the coping strategies that he used to deal with the emotions, okay? So basically, he repeats the same patterns, he attracts the same familiar partners, he experiences the same shit, and continues to sabotage his life, okay? Until we go back and we actually become aware of the original wound, aware of the original pain. We create space for that.
Bro, this is so insightful, bro. He's basically saying that you're going to keep bullshitting your life until you identify why, bro. Until you go deep into why. Why are you doing the same thing over and over and over again? Why are you sabotaging your life? Why are you making your life harder than it has to be? It's not you, bro. There's a deep wound. It's the boy. Like, someone needs to make a movie about this, bro. Like, you have the man and then you have the boy. And the boy had this deep, deep emotional wound, bro. Like, they have this deep emotional wound to the point where they don't even know what's going on. Like, imagine being a boy, you come home and your dad is beating your mom. Theoretical, right? You hate it. You hate your dad. You grow older. That pain is there. How it shows up, I don't know. I never experienced that. But it shows up a certain way, and that shows up, and it might sabotage your relationships, bro. There's a deep emotional wound that happens, and if you don't identify that deep emotional wound, it's going to show up, and it's going to continue to sabotage your life, bro. That's amazing, bro.
Actually be felt, grieved, and processed, okay? What then happens is, if you're unaware of what happened in the past, you have no idea when and how it's showing up in this moment. So when a man goes back into his past and grieves the original pain of what he experienced as a little boy, he will naturally begin to be aware of how it shows up in this present moment. Not from just an understanding, but from an embodiment. And this is where he can then choose something different and create an entire different life. He can then be with, if this moment brings up a trigger, he can then be with what this moment is actually seeking to bring forward for him to heal, okay? So how we change the future is by actually going back and working with the original pain of the past. Because until we do, we won't know how and where the wounded boy is showing up in this present moment. Okay, here are 7 ways that the wounded, immature boy shows up, and some of the greatest ways that it sabotages and contaminates a man's life. And I'm going to draw some points here. So there's 7 ways the immature boy shows up. Now the first one is that he lacks capacity. And what that looks like is he says that I can't be with this. Right, when a man is triggered into the implicit memory,
Dang, this is so interesting. Why don't more people talk about this? Wow. Because if you think about it, what we're really breaking down is that men that don't take time to understand their emotions and really don't take time to understand their trauma, they are living with the habits of a boy. Why? Because there's undealt trauma. What's the solution? Identifying that there's undealt trauma. And he's breaking down right now 7 things that show up when you are living from an immature boy. And capacity is real because, like, I remember in my past, bro, it gets to a point where capacity is so freaking difficult. Like, being able to connect emotionally is so freaking hard, bro. It's super difficult, bro. Like, to the point where I can feel, I'm being honest, I can feel the boy in me that just, like, it's denying, bro. It's like, no. And the other person doesn't get anything in return. And they probably feel like, wow, I just expressed all these emotions and this person is giving me a blank face. And that just creates friction, bro. And it's very difficult for you to build a relationship, especially an emotional relationship, if you cannot go deep into capacity and, like, be able to understand your emotions so you can articulate that to someone else, bro. That is real, bro. For sure.
Pain of the boy, he regresses back into that emotional state and that emotional capacity of that part of him, that immature younger part of him. And what this does is it goes from a man having this big capacity to having a very, very, very small capacity, where emotions are very easily overwhelming and overpowering, and he gets flooded by emotion, and he shuts down. And what he says to himself is, I can't do this anymore. I can't deal. I can't be with this. Fuck this. This is too much for me. This is too overwhelming. I can't do it. Okay? So that's very much when a man's operating from the capacity of a child. And it shows up in many, many different ways, but especially when he's triggered in a relationship, and it leaves him dismissing his partner's emotional experience because what she's feeling is too overwhelming for him to be with. The question the boy asks himself is, how can I get out of feeling this? Because it's too much for me and I can't be with it. He wants to escape, he wants to run, he wants to avoid, he wants to shut down because of the overwhelm of the responsibility that's required for him to expand his nervous system's capacity in what the moment is asking for him. This is where when he's triggered in a relationship, he regresses into this state of a very, very small emotional capacity. So that's one way that the boy shows up. The second one is he avoids responsibility. So he avoids the invitations from his partner to step up, to deepen into himself, or taking on more leadership, a greater role of responsibility. Because coming back to the first point, when a man's operating from this limited capacity, responsibility is an overwhelming thing, so he avoids responsibility. That's one way. The second piece when it comes to responsibility is he takes on too much of it. Because the little boy within him feels that he is solely responsible for how everyone feels, everyone's happiness, right? Or he needs the love and attention and approval that he will get from taking on too much responsibility. This is where a man can't say no, and he takes on too much. He loads his plate up with all
Bro, where
these
have
different
you
things.
been my whole life, bro? Where have you been my entire life?
To then become overwhelmed and then to shut down because of the limited capacity he has to actually be with all of these things that he's said yes to. Beneath that is also the boy who can't say no because he's afraid of conflict. He's afraid of being abandoned if he was to say no, to set boundaries. He's afraid of what would happen if he actually prioritized what he needs and what he wants. So he just says yes to everything. He just takes on so much fucking responsibility that it then leaves him completely emotionally shut down or reactive or not doing anything properly. That's a huge thing. He takes on all this responsibility, but none of it actually gets done properly because he can't do anything. He can't do all of the things he's taken on properly because there's not enough time or energy. That's the second one. The third one is that he communicates through his behavior. When a man's operating from the wounded boy, the immature boy, he doesn't know how to speak his truth. He doesn't know how to communicate in a healthy way and ask or communicate to have his needs met in a certain way. He's probably unaware of what his needs are, and his inability to be...
What the freak, bro? This is crazy work, bro. What bro, this is crazy.
Emotional experience leaves him trying to show his partner how he feels, but through his behavior, not through healthy communication. What this might look like is slamming things, showing that you're frustrated, showing that you're not okay, instead of speaking that you're not okay. Or because this boy lacks boundaries and he's doing all these things that he doesn't actually want to do, he then goes and does the things, right? Maybe he goes to an event with his partner that he didn't actually want to go with or go to, but the entire time he's just miserable and he's just moody and he's just dragging her down because he's trying to communicate through his behavior that I don't actually want to be here, but I don't know how to say no or prioritize what I need. So the immature boy communicates through his actions, through his energy, and it leaves not just a woman, but anyone feeling deeply unsafe because you can't trust a man who can't actually communicate and speak his truth. The third one is what we call toxic shame. Toxic shame is when a man's operating from this immature state, when his partner's not okay emotionally, or she gives him feedback, or she shares with him how he can step up more, or maybe he said he was going to do something and he completely forgot to do it, and it feels like an attack within his nervous system. It feels like this spiral of shame where he's left feeling like there's something wrong with me. What is wrong with me? I'm a fuck up, I made a mistake, nothing I ever do is enough. He goes into this reactive state. Maybe his partner's seeking a deeper presence from him and she shares with him where she's not feeling connected to him. And then he feels like she's attacking him when she's actually just communicating her needs and how she's feeling. And he sees it as an attack, so he then shuts down, or he reacts, or he minimizes or dismisses how she's feeling. And in doing so, he makes it about himself, completely taking it away from what it is that she's actually trying to bring to him. Therefore, fulfilling the very thing that she's actually bringing to him in that moment. This is how he sabotages it over time. From this unresolved toxic shame, this immature state of consciousness that's leaving him as this triggered reactive boy, where he constantly feels like he's being attacked. Number 4.
I see I have two people watching, one on Facebook and one on Kick. If you're watching, I'm basically listening to this video where this guy is essentially breaking down how to heal the wounded inner boy that's sabotaging your relationship. Just for context, I'm someone that has identified that I have a lot of, I would say, childlike tendencies, specifically around relationships and how I show up. So I'm just going on a deep dive as I do some work on my other screen to really understand and really, really dive deep into understand what it really means to identify the boy inside of me, sit with that boy, understand where that boy came from, do a very deep, deep, deep dive, and then be able to transform into a man. I also decided tonight that I'm going to separate my channel. So I'm going to do Built with Moses and Heal with Moses. The goal of Heal with Moses is to really, really dive deep into his content and then just really understand the content for myself and then essentially create it my own way. Like simple as that. And then when it comes to Build with Moses, just take things in my life that I'm doing right now and build agents around them and record it. One thing, one theory, or one philosophy that I want to really, really harp on is that document, don't create. One of my good friends, Justin, bro, if you're watching this, you're probably not watching this because no one's watching this. But if you ever see this, bro, you told me like a year or 2 years ago, document, bro, do not create. And I think that it's important to take your life and what you are understanding of life and create content around it that will benefit people just like you. Because one thing I know, bro, is that there's people out there that are my age that are looking for content like this. Because I'm going to be honest, I've searched YouTube so many times about breakups, about men, about like Mr. Nice Guy. And it's always from like a very philosophical standpoint. Like I feel like his is the most practical thing I've ever seen in my life, bro. It's super practical. So, bro, I appreciate this content. This is amazing, bro. This is 10 out of 10. This is really good content.
It's hard for us to imagine a life with
Number 5.
And I also think it's good because I resonate with all of it. I'm gonna be honest with you. The capacity, I've said it many times in relationships, like, hey, I do not have the capacity for this. Either I said it or I didn't. Responsibility, I have a tendency of biting off way more than I can chew consistently, bro. Just trying to do everything and I don't get shit done. Number 3, communicates through behavior. Yes. I'm gonna be honest, I legit thought that the woman is supposed to understand exactly who you are, how you show up, and the value that you have, or at least like appreciate you just based off what you do. I didn't want to articulate it. I didn't want to explain myself. If I'm mad, I want you to know I'm mad. That shit is, bro, I was acting like a little boy, bro. And then toxic shame. Basically how he explained it, and I'll try to think about if I ever done this, but basically explained it, say your girlfriend comes to you and she's like, bro, like, we need to go on more dates. Or babe, like, you stink. You basically come back and you say, stink. Dates. I took you to the grocery store yesterday. I do all this for you. I hang out with you all the time. You get defensive, bro. It's toxic shame. You get defensive. All she's telling you, she's legit explaining to you how to love her. And you're arguing with her. Bro, you are operating from a little boy. This is good stuff, bro. He has a 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 3 more points.
Is distraction. Okay, what I also call
Distraction.
void filling. When a man's operating from the boy, as I shared before, he struggles to be with the fullness of his emotional experience. It's overwhelming. Or maybe he just actually has no idea what is going on in his body, right? Remember the unconscious mind, 95% of us, when he's unaware of what's happening in his emotional body and he has built up suppressed emotion, that emotion has to go somewhere. And this is where he's left procrastinating, frustrated, emotionally disconnected, numb, and to avoid being with the depth of his emotional experience or the original pain that's triggered and comes up in a relationship, he shuts down and distracts by just working more, or training, going to the gym, or turning to porn, or alcohol, or weed, or vaping. That's another huge one, right? But basically what he's doing is he's filling the void and he's distracting himself from being with the original pain, being with the emotion that's seeking to be felt. So the boy will avoid being with what's seeking to be felt, and he will just distract, but find himself procrastinating, struggling to be present, and yeah, really lacking the ability to be in deep stillness. So instead he distracts, instead of actually just creating space and stillness to be with what's actually seeking to be felt. Number 6, wounded attachment. Okay, maybe you've heard of attachment styles before. I briefly touched on this before. Our attachment styles are the strategies that we used and that we developed in our original relationships with mum and dad to connect, right? To get our needs met, to gain closeness and connection, or to resist and push to have a sense of independence. Okay, but when we have wounded attachment, it's from a deep wounded place of protection, right? Avoidant, I'm pushing you away, right? Because if I were to let you in, it would remind me of the pain that I felt and experienced as a child, of the lack of love that I didn't have, right? Or whatever the core wounds are. Or I'm deeply anxious because I was love deprived as a child, and I need you to feel good about myself. I need you to fill the void from what was missing within my childhood. So this is where attachment is wounded, and it leaves a man either avoidant or deeply anxious. And or there's the disorganized attachment where it's both. It's both of those, and it swings between. It's very fearful, very fear-driven, fear-based. So a lot of things that come up within this is, I mean, I could do a whole training on each one of these points that I've noted here. But yeah, the wounded attachment is heavily comes out in relationships. So, and the final one, number 7, is a wounded ego. Okay, a lot of what I've touched on here is the wounded ego, but what I mean by this is this wounded egocentrism where the entire world, right, the entire relationship revolves around me having my needs met, and there's a lack of compassion and depth of understanding of what my partner might be experiencing emotionally, and what my partner might need, and maybe what's required for me to go beyond myself and be selfless and actually honor what it is that my partner might be experiencing.
I think what's interesting about this whole video, it teaches you that being a wife, being a husband, being a good partner, honestly, being a good human being takes work. And I think what I find very, very interesting about its content is that this is something that really, really doesn't get talked about a lot. Yeah. I'm definitely going to create the channel Tonight Heal with Moses on every platform and get really, really serious. Really serious. This is interesting.
When a boy didn't have his emotional needs met in childhood, he will then get into a relationship today, and he will use that relationship to fulfill everything he didn't have in childhood. So basically, he becomes this boy where it's all revolved around him because he's actually getting and he's using this woman or this relationship to get what he didn't have as a boy. Because the little boy within him, right, he can't tell the difference between the lack of love he had as a child and this relationship he's in right now, right? So as children, the world literally revolves around us. It has to, right? Because if it doesn't, we don't prioritize getting our survival needs met. If we don't have our survival needs met as children, we die. Right? So the world revolves around us as children. So when a man is still stuck in operating in a psychological consciousness of a child, the world revolves around him, and he struggles to truly have compassion and deep understanding as to what it is that his woman needs to feel emotionally connected to him. So here are just some of the ways that the wounded boy shows up. And I invite you to take a moment to reflect on where in your life are you? Where are you showing up as the boy in your life? How is he showing up? And I want you to also then write down, if nothing changes, what's going to happen? If I don't do the work to actually change and shift this in the next 1 to 3 years?
To be honest, when it comes to me, and I'm pretty sure other men resonate with this, but if you don't do the work and you continue to do this, you're going to either continue to sabotage relationships that are meant for you, which means that you can possibly meet your wife, but you're going to sabotage it because you are living in that fearful, wounded inner boy. Or number 2, you're going to essentially get to the point where that person might love you, even with your inner wound, and you're going to pass that inner wound, and you're going to basically put your kid, especially your son, through the same thing you're currently going through. You're not going to have the tools in order to teach him to understand this and identify this and put him in the positions where he can feel and identify his boy-like tendencies and his feelings and emotions while he's a boy, and then lead him into manhood, because you'll still be operating from a boy, which means that he will have no guidance, which means that the cycle repeats itself. Yeah.
How is this actually, what's this going to cost me? What is this costing me by not healing the boy and awakening the mature, safe man? The reason why I want you to look up what this is actually costing you by not changing.
So it's currently 30. I'm going to go to the gym real quick, or get ready for bed. And then I will probably come back tomorrow and finish this video, but I really need to do this before it gets late. So I'll see y'all tomorrow. I'm just going to do this every day, either build with Moses or heal with Moses, and then maybe we can create some agents that. And this is me like just spitballing. I think it's important to create some agents that take our content, create other content out of it. So organize it for our editors, our short form editors to edit the content, post it on social media, and then number two, create like a blog out of it based off everything we talked about. And number three, being able to yeah, I think that's it for now. And I think really, really separating the two, heal with Moses and build with Moses, because I think what he's talking about is very, very important. I just want to dive deep into it and give men a perspective that they don't currently have, because I think it's very important for men to really dive deep, to really see and understand if they have that wounded inner boy and how it's sabotaging not only their business, not only their emotional relationships, like their relationships with the other sex, but also their business relationships, because I'm sure that it shows up in similar ways. So I find this very interesting. I appreciate you, Ryan. Thank you for popping up on my timeline, bro. But I'll see y'all tomorrow. I'm probably not going to stream tonight, but I'll see y'all tomorrow, and I love y'all. Peace.